Top 3 people who went missing during Hurricane Melissa. The rescue team found the boat overturned only a few yards from the shore. The waves still crashed violently against the hull, but the strangest part was the radio. It crackled on its own, faint, desperate breaths coming through the static. Please, someone. Then silence. That was the last trace of David Miller, a father of 2, who had vanished only minutes before. The rope he had tied around himself was still coiled neatly in the boat. No signs of injury. No footprints in the sand. Just emptiness swallowed by the roaring storm. But let's rewind back to the night Hurricane Melissa came tearing to the coast of North Carolina. The sky turned black long before nightfall. Trees bent like they were being pushed by invisible hands. Emergency alerts blared through every phone in town. David and his family had evacuated earlier that day, but just as they reached higher ground, he remembered the old radio his father left behind, a family keepsake, something he swore he'd protect. So, against every warning, he returned home, alone. Neighbors later reported seeing his pickup truck fighting through walls of rain as he drove toward the coastline. He thought he had time. He thought the storm center wouldn't reach them for hours. Everyone thought that. Inside the house, he found the radio exactly where he left it. But the moment he touched it, something was wrong. The radio turned on by itself. Static first, then a faint whisper. It sounded like a woman, and she was crying. David, thinking it was an emergency broadcast, grabbed the radio and made for his boat, hoping to reach the harbor where the Coast Guard was stationed. But as he motored away from shore, the radio's signal sharpened, like something was guiding him further into the storm. "Don't leave me here," the voice begged. He tried to respond, shaking, confused, rain blinding his eyes. But each time he spoke, the voice just grew more desperate, more familiar, because despite the chaos of the storm, David suddenly recognized it. It was his wife's voice, except she was safe, miles away, at a shelter with their children. Lightning split the sky, and for a breath of second, he saw something in the water beside him, a figure, pale, reaching. Its hand slid across the boat, like it was searching for a grip. David screamed and revved the engine, but the boat jolted violently, like something beneath had grabbed it. The radio erupted with overlapping voices, hundreds of them crying out for help, pleading, begging. Then the call the Coast Guard recorded, David shouting, "Stop pulling me under. Please, no." A final splash. The radio went dead. The boat drifted back to shore on its own, empty. And the rescue team swears when they touched that radio, they heard those same whispers too. But David wasn't the only one who disappeared that night. Someone else went missing, and their final moments were captured on video. The footage begins with rain hammering the lens, droplets blurring everything into streaks of gray and black. The timestamp reads 1:42 a.m., the height of Hurricane Melissa's landfall. A shaky beam of light sweeps across flooded streets. Heavy breathing, sloshing boots, the quiet panic of someone trying not to panic. This was Officer Daniel Perez, a first responder who had been searching for survivors in a neighborhood cut off by rising water. His body cam would become the last known trace of him. But before the chaos, Daniel had been calm, heroic, even. When the evacuation order went out, he volunteered to lead the final sweep, checking houses where elderly residents lived alone. He had training, experience, and he believed storms were predictable. You just had to respect them. But Melissa wasn't like other storms. On his radio, voices were overlapping. People crying for help even after dispatch claimed their channels were clear. Reports of empty homes still lit by flickering lights. Doors swinging open. Wind howling like it had a voice. Still, Daniel pushed on. The body cam shows him reaching a house with a partially collapsed roof. Lightning gives brief flashes. Furniture floating, windows broken. Family photos drifting like lost leaves. He calls out, "Police! If anyone's here, call back." Silence. He enters. The camera catches an overturned wheelchair. A TV still glowing faint blue. A pot boiling over on the stove, though the power grid had supposedly gone down an hour earlier. Daniel tries the hallway, shining his flashlight into rooms one by one. Children's drawings on the wall, names scribbled in crayon. One drawing, a family of 4, but the father is colored completely black, with long arms that stretch across the page. A chill in his voice. "Hello?" The storm booms outside, shaking the walls. Then a noise from upstairs. A thud, another thud, then footsteps. Slow, heavy, too heavy for a child or elderly person. Daniel calls it in. No reply, just static. He raises his flashlight to the stairwell, and for a second, the viewer can see a wet footprint forming on the wood, not appearing after a step, appearing from nothing. Another one follows it, and another, like someone invisible was walking down toward him. He backs away. "Dispatch, someone's inside with me." But the line crackles, twisting his voice into distorted echoes. A shadow moves at the top of the stairs, not belonging to any figure. It stretches long, then splits into multiple arms, like silhouettes trying to crawl down the walls. Daniel runs. Water slashes up as he bursts outside into the storm. His breathing is rapid, terrified. He turns the camera back toward the house. And that's when he sees it. A tall figure standing in the doorway, drenched and unmoving. Lightning reveals a face, but there's nothing there. Just smooth skin where eyes should be. The figure tilts its head, as if curious. Daniel whispered, "What are you?" But the figure points past him toward the street intersection. And in that brief flash of lightning, the camera captures dozens of people standing in the floodwater, motionless, watching, all with faces wiped clean. Daniel screams, running toward his patrol truck, camera shaking wildly. He opens the door, then a sharp splash. The camera falls sideways into water. It keeps recording, just barely, as boots are dragged backward into the darkness. Daniel Perez was never found. But what's truly unsettling, hours later, the truck door was discovered wide open, and the engine still running. And now, we reach the most unsettling disappearance of all, the child whose footprints simply stopped existing. They found the footprints at dawn, when the storm finally loosened its grip on the coast. Small prints, the kind a 5-year-old might make, stamped into wet sand, space like the child had been running. The track led from a damaged house, across the flooded yard, and down toward the ocean. And then they just ended. No slide mark, no stagger, no struggle. Just gone. That child was Emily Carter, a bright, curious girl who adored the sea but feared the dark. Her mother, Sarah, had been putting away emergency supplies earlier that night when she heard the front door creak open. Emily's favorite stuffed rabbit, the one she never slept without, was left on the living room floor, soaked. Sarah ran outside screaming her daughter's name, but the wind swallowed every word. The Coast Guard believed Emily had wandered toward the water in the chaos. But Sarah insisted she had seen something moments before noticing her daughter missing. A flash of light outside her window, not lightning. A glow, like someone holding a lantern in the storm. The body cam from a responding officer shows their search through the neighborhood. Houses mutilated by the hurricane. Power lines thrashing like trapped snakes. Broken toys floating across driveways. They shouted for Emily. No answer. Then they checked the Carter's yard camera, surprisingly intact. The timestamp, 12:09 a.m. It shows Emily standing just outside the house, clutching her rabbit, hair whipped by the wind. But she wasn't alone. A woman stand behind her, tall, soaked, long hair plastered across her face. At first glance, she seemed like a neighbor trying to help. But the footage glitches when a woman moves. Her body stretches like static, pixels warping unnaturally. Emily looks up at her, not scared, more like entranced. Then wind knocks the camera sideways. The feed cuts. Investigators continued toward the beach, following those tiny prints. Sarah begged them not to stop, her voice shredded by fear and salt and disappointment. But the prints ending so abruptly wasn't the only strange sign. Emily's pink rain boots were found placed neatly beside an old wooden pier, as if someone helped her remove them. One of the officers radioed in. There's something else here. Dragging marks. Not from feet, from fingers. 5 long grooves in the sand running parallel to the footprints, stretched out and then merging into deep water. That's when Sarah noticed the tide pulling something back to shore, a small object bumping against the rocks with each wave. She rushed toward it, hands trembling. It was Emily's stuffed rabbit. Its head was turned completely backward. Sarah refused to leave. She stayed there until the sky brightened to gray. And when the wind finally quieted, she claimed she heard a girl's voice on the breeze, small, distant, echoing under the pier. "Mommy, I'm cold." The responding officers didn't record that, but they did catch something else. A woman's silhouette far out on a broken section of the pier, standing perfectly still, hair blowing in no wind at all. When lightning flashed, she vanished. Emily's case was officially classified as lost to storm, but the search team still won't go near that pier after dark. Some swear they see what footprints appear behind them, then disappear again as if a child keeps trying to come home. 3 disappearances, all unexplained, all connected to Hurricane Melissa. But the most terrifying part isn't what the storm took. It's what might have come with it and never left. The official reports all say the same thing. A deadly storm. Strong currents. Search attempts failed. Case closed. But the people who were there, the rescue crews, the neighbors, the families, they know the truth is darker. The storm didn't just take people. Something came from the water that night. It started with the recordings. Hours after the hurricane passed, emergency dispatch received a transmission on the same frequency David Miller used before he was pulled into the sea. At first, it was only static. Then a man's voice broke through. "I didn't drown. It pulled me under." It sounded like David, but the voice wasn't right. It was wet, gurgled, like it was being spoken from inside the ocean. Before anyone could verify the source, the channel went dead again. Then came the patrol unit that found Officer Perez's abandoned truck. The windshield was covered in handprints, but not human ones. The fingers were long, too long. Some prints had only 3 digits, and they were pressed from the inside. The officers who discovered the vehicle swore they heard splashes nearby, but when they checked, the floodwaters were completely still. That same night, a report came in from Sarah Carter, Emily's mother. She had refused to leave the coastal shelter and kept watching the shoreline from the windows, praying she'd see her daughter. At 3:17 a.m., she did. Small footsteps in the sand. A child silhouette walking toward the shelter. Bare feet, hair dripping. Sarah ran outside without thinking, screaming Emily's name. But when she reached the spot, there was no child. Just footprints filling with water as if erased by an invisible tide. And something else, the shadow stretching beside them, taller than any person, tall enough to tower over the lampposts. Sarah collapsed, sobbing, as distant laughter echoed across the shoreline, a little girl's giggle riding the wind. Word spread among survivors sheltered at the high school gym. Rumors, whispers, people speaking of figures in the water, faces in the windows, and voices calling their names at night. The most chilling testimony came from a diver helping with recovery efforts. He said the ocean floor near the harbor looked wrong. "The sand moves," he told investigators. "It swells and sinks like something alive is breathing underneath." He claimed he saw human shapes down there, suspended in the water, eyes closed, hair waving gently, like they were sleeping or waiting. He refused to dive again. By the end of the week, the missing persons list had grown far longer than the official 3. Locals began calling them the storm's chosen, people who didn't drown but were taken. And as strange sightings continued, glowing shapes under the waves, dripping footprints along empty docks, one truth became impossible to deny. The disappearances didn't end when Hurricane Melissa passed. Some nights, when the water is calm and the moon is gone, you can still hear them. The missing, calling out from the deep, voices begging to be saved. Voices begging to pull you in with them. The storm may be long gone, but whatever it unleashed is still here, waiting,